Hello, it's the 5th of January 2024. Thank you for joining me yet again. Now, we're going to get straight into it. I have my dear friend Chris Taylor from Don't Let Them Burn, and we are going to now have a discussion about AI. I just got to bring him on. Thank you. So I'm having a few problems with buttons and getting stuff uploaded and all the rest. Chris, good to see you, my friend, from the other side of the pond. How are you, sir?
I am great, and thanks for having me again. Good to see you too.
No,
This,
no, no. It's brilliant. I see you're looking wonderfully trendy on your side of the pond, so that is brilliant. Um, Excuse me. We're going to start a discussion on AI, and I know that, frankly, you are the man to go to. Hence, why I'm going to you about AI, as we would go to you about a number of subjects. I have a funny feeling that what we have to discuss will go beyond the time that we are going to allocate, say 50, 55 minutes. It's going to go beyond. So, Chris, let's start with this. Could you give me a definition of AI? And we will then move from that point because I think it's potentially quite a broad subject, is how we view it. Thank you, sir.
yeah, well, the simplest definition is in the name: artificial intelligence. Something is, or someone, some group. Not they don't have to be nefarious. This is a very old concept, and I'll bring some of that up in a second. Somebody's creating something artificial to become like humans and surpass humans to
Right.
become like a god.
Hmm.
Right? And so we have basic artificial intelligence, which is in your phone, in your video games. Um, when you go and sign up for a credit card, the reason why you get a quick reply is because of artificial intelligence. It picks up the information that you think it doesn't know, and you get approved or denied. Um, when you go when the internet first started, they already had artificial intelligence in DARPA. Um, and so that was ARPA, and then that became DARPA, but they already had ARPANET, right? So you go back to World War II, and they were developing artificial intelligence there and forward. So it's just simply it's a device, a tool to help humanity, but it will become, or already has become, something deeper than that. America has a couple different large, I call them large format artificial intelligence, like D Wave and and a few others that some of them were tracking terrorists, but one of them, I can't remember the name right now, but one of them was turned on the American people. That's just one. There's another and another and another, and so without getting into too much, that's basically how what artificial intelligence is, the tool to help humanity figure, just like a calculator, and then it gets bigger after that.
So we've just seen. I've seen pictures in the last. I think actually in the last 24 hours about a McDonald's store
Mhm.
where you can go in to McDonald's, and I'm just want to say this for the bit of clarification in regard to what we put in our bodies. I'm not recommending McDonald's. But a McDonald's hamburger joint where there are no people and the whole thing is run on AI, Chris.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah. I
Yeah.
saw that's a new one. They already had another one that believe 3 years ago or 2 years ago, that started in another state,
Hmm.
and so we're moving towards where humanity, not all at once, incrementally, will be replaced by artificial intelligence or robots, which clearly uses artificial intelligence. So we're on the cusp of that, and many people look at it like this stuff is going to happen, 50, 100 years from now. No, 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 no. It's happening right now. We're just in a transition phase. Um, in one sense, it's natural. In another sense, it's definitely super artificially put on humanity, and we can explore some of that. But what I really want to do, and let me go back a real quick second here for the people that want, a definition outside of what I've given. Pretty much, it's a field of computer science and engineering practice for intelligence demonstrated by machines and intelligent agents,
Mhm.
right? And so it's machines or software as opposed to intelligence of humans or animals. Okay, so it's a field of computer study science that develops intelligent machines. And so there you go. All right. But what when people talk about AI though, robots and all these things, they leave out very specific components. Maybe they don't know, maybe they're not aware of how this goes back into history. And we're talking about ancient history. Okay. Um the Hollywood movies, back in, they cover Greek mythology and all these things. Though artificial intelligence are in those areas. So one thing I could tell you is in Jewish folklore, there's something called a golem, right? And a golem is close to, it's a clay figure. Some people they do it another way, but you would call up a spirit to go into this clay figure for it to do your bidding. I'm not saying this actually happened. I'm telling you the foundations of artificial intelligence is actually spirituality, religion. Okay. In Greek mythology, like say Perseus, if you've ever seen Clash of the Titans, right?
Mm.
You have Perseus, the demigod, son of Zeus, and other iterations, he's the son of Poseidon. And anyway, the gods gave him a robot bird. It was intelligent. It knew how to communicate and all this stuff, right? So that's Greek mythology, and in Greek mythology as well, you have the giant robots, what you would call an automaton, right? That it's also in the Roman myths. So you've heard the term probably science and magic is one and the same, right? That goes back into alchemy,
Right.
Hermes Trismegistus, the
Mm.
Hermetic laws, and all these things. And so, if we get a hold of the spiritual connotations, we'll be able to understand artificial intelligence even more. And that's why I like to start off here because we have God who gave Adam the breath of life.
Mm. Mm.
Adam wasn't a thing; it was just flesh and bones, and however God constructed humanity. But he never comes into being until God blew the breath of life in him. And that's the same concept, but artificially when it comes to robots and all these, and I'm not saying that the artificial intelligence in your phone is possessed or anything like that. I'm just giving you a foundation so you could track with us, right? Um, Another spiritual idea that you might have seen. Some of you don't watch sci-fi or superhero movies or stuff that a lot of young men and young women like, but certain objects are endowed with supernatural energies, abilities, personalities, and when Thor's hammer Mjolnir, it it's a personality. It's endowed with supernatural abilities, right? And he calls it hammer, and the hammer actually has suggestive features, and
Mm.
so when you go to Marvel and you go to the Infinity Stones, the lore, the Infinity Stones are alive. They're not just stones that are just ambiguous and whatever. Uh, in in the that concept is taken from some Indian mythology. When I say India, I mean and when I say Indian, I mean India. You know, And so some of that comes from there. But anyway, when Thanos, the allegory for God, which is but he's an angel of death. He
Mm.
finds these stones and he's able to change reality. That's because those gods, so to speak, false gods, gave him the power to change reality, change time, and all these things. Those are godlike abilities. And like I said, Thanos is a um allegory for God the Father, because the whole rapture thing is in that movie. But anyway, without going further into that, um, in African witchcraft, witchcraft, also known as voodoo or hoodoo, it goes by the names. You are able to supposedly use drugs to control somebody by calling up a spirit to possess them, or you take dead flesh and you call up a spirit into that, and you have
Right.
what you call today a zombie, right? The zombie thing is not accidental, but that's a whole a whole nother show. So, and moving further on, so that's zombies. We have a golem, we have the magic hammer from Thor, we have the Infinity Stones. Um, uh,
Chris, can I just back up? When you say Gollum, that
mhm,
sounds very much like a character from Lord of the Rings.
absolutely, and Gollum was possessed.
Right.
Right? I mean, how can we? What other way can we look at it as? When you think about split personalities and MK Ultra and all these things, some of the personalities are not necessarily demons, but in
Mm.
other cases they absolutely are.
Mm. Mm.
Right? So Gollum, uh, yes, the Jewish folklore, and then J.R.R. Tolkien took the concept and made the Gollum in his books. Okay, he took a lot of fantasy elements and occult elements and stuff, and wrote his story. So, um, in Roman Catholicism and other spiritual practices, you have what's called spirit guides,
Mm.
right?
Mm.
And intercession with saints and angels. Their saints aren't the saints from the Bible. Their saints are fallen angels, right? And so these spirit guides, they can come in different forms. Like, say for instance, in Aladdin, you had the carpet that was alive in a sense, right? And it took them on their journeys, and it had a personality. You know, I'm really putting something together here so people's mind can start clicking, because when we get to
Mm.
it, I don't know if it'll be this in this program or later on, but when we get to it, you will see that a lot of things going on with the artificial intelligence we think of now has the capabilities to bring in a spirit. But I'm gonna stop right there. So,
Can I just, sorry,
mhm,
just interrupt you a minute? You used a word at the beginning of our conversation,
mhm,
alchemy. Can
mhm.
we, which, can we give a definition of of alchemy?
So, um, yeah, if you ever heard of the Midas touch,
Yep. Yep.
okay, so this guy was able to turn metal into gold,
Mm.
right? And that's pretty much what alchemy is. You're using science, so called,
Mm.
or witchcraft, to make to how can I say it, to manipulate the elements,
Mm. Mm.
right?
Mm.
So when you see, a witch or a warlock or something turn, you know XYZ or fruit or whatever into cash or coins or whatever, that's alchemy.
Right. Right.
So you're manipulating.
The reason,
Yeah.
sorry to interrupt. The reason I'm asking is because we are the sort of insidious sort of invasion of paganism, witchcraft, all the rest, spells, etc. I mean, we look at certain films, etc., where it becomes acceptable, like Harry Potter, for argument's sake.
Mhm.
All of this is a blend that's blending into that, and before we've realized it, so much within our societies we've absorbed it.
Right. Absolutely. And to make it really simple for people, if you're a Christian, if you're not a Christian, the Bible tells us that we live in a fallen world,
Mm,
right?
mm,
So when we are saved, we look at the world only as we know it,
Mm.
right? The good things, the times we can have, that we're not full of people sacrificing other people to their false gods. You know, we're not
Mm.
living in that
No,
society,
no.
right? So when we start finding out a lot of these things and how it goes back to paganism, we're surprised, like, whoa, this actually happens. This is true. XYZ, whatever the thing is. But God told you already, we're living in a fallen world. We were just not initiated into the occult, witchcraft, and other change of thought.
Because
So
because when people, this whole thing of, worshipping the earth, the whole climate nonsense,
mhm,
worship of Gaia and all the rest, that is another push for paganism, pantheism, this whole thing, the worship of the earth, the worship of Gaia. So we've gone from subduing to earth, from to subdue the earth as God has asked us to do, to
yeah,
then allowing the earth to subdue us. I'll throw that in the mix as well.
yes. Well, another way to put it is mankind from the beginning, once
Mm,
Lucifer tricked Eve, and then her husband followed.
mm,
We we went away from the natural order of things.
mm,
Everything is upside down,
mm,
right? But we see it as normal,
mm,
right? Death is not normal.
mm,
Being ugly is not normal, at least I think it's not. Diseases, everything that you could think of that's painful and miserable in this life is not normal. It
mm,
just seems normal because this is the circle we have to go through until God redeems you or redeem the earth. Because in the Millennium Kingdom, it'll be back to like a Garden of Eden type conditions. Sin is still there, but there's like a renovation of this planet. But the full renovation doesn't go on until eternity. So, um, if we could look at and maintain this course on how things are perverted, then we get even bigger understandings of what's going on, right?
mm, mm.
So, hold on a second, got to type something here.
No, not at all. Not at all.
Yeah, so
Chris, when they're releasing, inventions and all this. I mean, and they say, oh, as you said, people think that in 50 or 100 years' time, actually, no, we're already there. In many ways, the technology is
yeah,
100 years in advance.
yeah, and by the way, and I could prove this. I don't even know
Mm,
if I should say it right now, but I'll say it, but we'll get into that later. We are being trained, led by spiritual beings. The leap that we took from the late 1800s to now has never been done. This is before we had the internet and all this stuff. It has never been done. And when you start to look back, you see how many people in theosophy and this and that, spirituality, Darwinism, 1800s,
mm,
they were being led by demons. Okay. And some of this technology, not all, because some of it is just tools. They seem new to us, but in eternity, they already existed, except for the evil stuff, right? We're just figuring it out, or we're getting what they call secret knowledge to invent evil things, as
right.
Roman 1 says, right?
Mm,
So, you know, well, I have proof, 2 videos that we'll look at later, um, pretty much telling you that some of these creators of artificial intelligence, not all, just some, are in contact with beings, and they tell it to their classes and in interviews, and that they're coming, and they won't care about us. They don't get the biblical connotation because they're not Christians, but they understand that there is another realm and they're in contact with it. So, um, we have give me 1 second here. 1 second. Let me make sure I'm telling you the right things here. All right. So, a lot of you watched movies and grew up with cartoons. Maybe not all of you, but you're gonna understand some things that I'm about to tell you here, right? So, remember the day the Earth stood still?
Yes, yes.
All right, we had Klaatu and a menacing robot that came with him to warn the Earth about the present course they're on. And this was a
Mm,
whole new agey type thing because Klaatu was actually a representation of Jesus Christ, and the robot was a transmission of what the future could hold, right? And so that's one movie, the day the Earth stood still, and all the themes were in there. You know, climate change. Well, they didn't call it climate change, but you know, we have to fix the Earth. We have to get rid of our
mm,
bombs
mm,
and blah 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 blah
mm,
blah. Right?
mm.
In Lost in Space, we have a seemingly intelligent robot who helps a family on their adventures through the galaxy, right? But the way the robot was written, I'm not saying it was written nefariously, like to program us. I don't know that for a fact. Some movies and TV shows and books and whatever are predictive programming, but I'm not sure about Lost in Space. Okay, so uh, Danger, Danger, Will Robinson. You know, if you ever watch that, you understand. And they made a newer one on Netflix, and it wasn't great. It got woke or whatever, but um, the same thing. You know, a lot of intelligent robots, right?
Well, within Hollywood, within your culture, well, we saw some of those films, of course, television series, of course, coming over here,
Yeah.
was the fact that from the 50s was beginning this embediment of, you know, aliens for argument's sake, robots for argument's sake. There'd been this huge push from there.
Right.
Has, you
Um, and so I don't know if I said this before, but another way you could look at it is it's spiritual energy or the demonic power that
right,
leads later on into mind control. Okay. So
mm,
we have to keep the spiritual realm in the forefront of our minds when we talk about this stuff. Okay,
right,
because some people are going to say, what does you know the Transformers have to do with artificial intelligence and
mm,
zombies and what does it have to do with that? You know, but I'm explaining it to you so you can really understand. So I'm going to sidestep for a second to tell you about the spiritual energy and demonic power, right?
right, right,
So this energy goes by different names, right? The one most people are more familiar with is what's called the Force,
mm,
right? From Star Wars.
mm,
But Satan is also called the Force, right? Now the word force doesn't always mean something evil, but it's something, a spiritual entity that you could find in different cultures, right? Um, Satan is called the prince and power of the air. That's a storm god that goes into Thor, and Thor's a storm god, and Enlil, and a
mm.
whole bunch of ancient different names, right? It's also called a Tao, which is in Eastern mysticism, or actually that one comes from Hinduism, right?
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And then you have the Chi, which is in Buddhism and all the martial arts and stuff like that. Then you have what's called a prana. You have the Brahman, which is one of the triune gods in Hinduism, right? At the
Mm,
top of the head. So when you hear people say the universe granted me this,
mm.
universe is on my side today.
Right.
That's the Brahman. That's the architect of the universe.
Mm,
You know,
mm, mm.
you have what's called the light. You hear that a lot of New Age circles. The
Right.
light, the light is granted me. Make sure you go to the light. All this stuff, right? Then you have in the book called The Secret. That's being able to manifest things into existence, which is a lie. Only God can do that. Evil cannot create. Evil can only pervert. Right. Um, what you have another one called mind over matter. You have what's called willpower. You have the yin and the yang. You have chaos magic. You have sigil magic. You have animal magnetism and reverse animal magnetism.
Got you. Got
They're
you.
all the same thing said in different ways, repackaged over time.
Mm.
Okay. One of the more recent ones is called NLP, Neuro Linguistic Programming or Processing,
Programming.
right? When I used to get into this stuff, I found out it was witchcraft. It's basically manipulating people or circumstances to fit your will, right? And what they did was try to get you to throw off everything that you knew about the Bible and God. They kind of try to push you into atheism and all these false beliefs. But it's to
Mm.
get you to manipulate people around you. Or you could date 10,000 women if you want to, as long as you have the confidence and blah blah blah, right? It's witchcraft. All right. So we know about MK Ultra, the CIA mind
Chris,
control program. Go ahead.
no, sorry, you just froze a bit. Fascinating, because quite rightly, you're giving us the huge sort of broad background to this,
Mhm.
with the key that says this, well, this is spiritual. And
Yeah.
I'm immediately thinking of Ephesians 6. Well, we're not fighting flesh and blood, but principalities and powers. So what is then, this may sound like a naive question, maybe a stupid question, but I think we need to answer it, because then we can work out other consequences, which I think are fairly obvious.
Mhm.
In regard to AI, it means that if we look at the AI when we make a phone call centers, what we're dealing with, banking, blah, 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 they're making algorithms, there are, all of this. What's the main purpose of this? What are we as humans going to do if there are no jobs for us, Chris? If we're seeing that these robots are pushing us out of work, what's the whole plan here?
Well, you're going to you're reading the end of the book.
You're
You're reading the end of the book, man.
not the first person to tell me that. But
Okay, I'll give people a short glance because there's so
mm,
much more to say. Um, Total control, total slavery of humanity,
right.
and having humans merged with artificial intelligence, or merged with robots, or anytime you hear
Mm,
robots and stuff, it always has something to do with artificial intelligence,
mm,
you know, at least beyond the base level.
mm.
Okay. So I'm not saying that plan is going to work out altogether, but that's their plan. When I say they, I mean the military industrial complex, I mean the communists, I mean the technocrats, the globalists, the Masons, the Kabbalists. All of these people are working for the same team. Some of them don't even know it. Okay. So they're creating an artificial world on top of ours. When it comes to the internet, it's a tool, but it wasn't made for us to do all the things that we're doing now. It was made to enslave us. Okay.
Okay, hold on. Back up. We're back up that minute. Could you just confirm who actually invented the internet? I thought it was a British invention, but I could be wrong.
I don't have the name right now, but you could definitely point to DARPA.
Right.
That's where it started. No question.
Mm.
People should read Annie Jacobson's book, The Pentagon's Brain. And it has a subtitle, but look up The Pentagon's Brain.
Are you
DARPA.
referring to Annie Jacobsen, who wrote Operation Paperclip? Is that the
Yes,
same?
yes,
Right.
yes.
Okay. Brilliant.
That's how you pronounce her name, Jacobson?
And Jacobsen to me, or
I
Jacobsen, or
call it
Jacobsen. Jacobsen. Sorry. What's the book again, Chris?
The Pentagon's Brain.
Right. Okay.
Pentagon's Brain. Everyone should read that book, and it's been verified by DARPA too. And so, so much in there. But the internet started with DARPA. It was called, like I said it in the beginning of the program. It was called ARPA. Then it became DARPA. The internet was ARPANET. Then it became the internet. Okay, so it was
Wow.
a networking of computers, And so anyway, we have it now, and they don't want us to use it anymore because we're talking too much. We're fighting against them. The internet gave humanity power to fight against the enslavement, right?
Yeah.
But so
So why? Well, that's sorry, because I don't know how far we're going to get in a
uh,
way if I keep interrupting, but this is really important. So why invent it then? And then you say it's for our enslavement. So could
well,
you then explain that?
kind of have to go backwards.
Mm.
backwards to the 1920s, around that time, where we had H.G. Wells.
Yeah.
You know some of these other names, Huxley,
Mm.
the two brothers. You know what I'm talking about, the two brothers.
Aldous Huxley,
Yeah, and a few other people I could bring up.
Julian Huxley. Yeah.
And so they were in think tanks with groups,
Right.
CIA and all these other, but CIA wasn't invented yet, but you know what I mean.
No.
The secret agency around that time. Okay. And so they like H.G. Wells was a super communist and racist, right? A lot of the technology that we think is so awesome and fascinated came from communist mindsets. Okay. And so let me look up this thing.
If you say that has come from a communist mindset, then that is where you're saying the control element comes from.
Yeah, at least most of it. That when we talk about all of this great technology that we think,
Mm.
I'm gonna tell people a few books that they need.
Brilliant. So in one sense, you've got the idealism of you've got the ideology of Marxism. So Karl
Yeah.
Marx created that.
And feudalism.
And feudalism, well, yeah, absolutely, which is what they want to turn us back to.
Yeah.
So as then, of course, he's round about 1840, the Industrial Revolution is way underway. So as the Industrial Revolution is happening over here, Karl Marx is actually in London. Then things begin to unfold even more. And of course, as we're talking about the spiritual world, then that is going to manifest in inventions, etc., in progress. It will then evolve and evolve and evolve. So Karl Marx is then turning around and going, right, now we've got this industrial revolution. Certain things begin to fit. It becomes like this sort of collective, all these cogs start fitting in. Now, I may not have explained that absolutely brilliantly.
It's called a scientific dictatorship.
Right.
And Edward Bernays wrote a book called Propaganda. Everybody needs to read that.
Yep. And just for the record, I understand the first CEO of Netflix is Marcus Bernays Randolph, the great nephew of Edward Bernays.
Interesting.
So look at how things morph and they morph because we're talking about predictive programming. We're talking about the programming within the media. And then we suddenly go, oh, I've just seen that in a program, and suddenly this new idea's out. Or I was thinking about a new trash can, and then suddenly it appears in my feed on an Amazon feed or something like that. This is you're absolutely right. This is real.
They want to know everything you're thinking. They want to control your reality. That's why they're switching up the words now with the trans, this and that, and all of 2,000 genders. They're trying to control your reality, the way you think, and the way you speak, right? And so H.G. Wells wrote a lot of different books. The Island of Dr. Moreau, which goes into genetic manipulation.
Yes.
He wrote a book that was on the nose. It's called The New World Order.
Yep.
Right? Yep. He also another one called The Open Conspiracy. What are we to do with our lives? Right? He also had one that made people, I guess some people think he was some sort of Christian. It's called God, the Invisible King. And they called I think H.G. Wells the father of science fiction, right? He wrote another one called Imperialism and the Open Conspiracy. I think that's the same book with a different title. And he wrote many other books. The Time Machine. These concepts didn't just come out of thin air. He was brilliant in his intellect, but the think tanks, that's what most people don't know about.
Right.
And so when you see the Fourth Industrial Revolution and Klaus Schwab and all these people, this is just their next step. Klaus Schwab is not the main guy. He's just a figure. Noah Harari, he's not the main guy. He's just the figurehead. He's telling you that this is we passed the last generation now that knows what it is to be human. right? And so, without getting into too much of that, I'm just telling you, this is the world they want to create. Even if God was to say, "Hey, I'm going to push this back a little bit," all they're going to do is regroup until God says, "Okay, y'all do what you got to do," you know, and that's in the 7 year tribulation. So, 2030 is a big year for them. 2045 is a big year for them. 2050 is a big year to them for them, all the way up to 2100. By 2100, in their eyes, we'll be totally enslaved, and there's nothing we can do about it. But
Do you think we're gonna? Do you think we're gonna get that? Do you think
that,
we're actually gonna get that far,
that-
Chris?
that's what I was about to say. I don't think so, because
Mm,
God is in control, not them.
right.
We just know
Right.
that in the 7 year tribulation, it's going to be horrifying. But notice in the book of Revelation, it's God's wrath, not Satan's wrath, not man's wrath. It's God's
No.
wrath pouring out. And there's even part in, I believe, Revelation 17, I believe, where it says he's going to take vengeance on those destroying the earth,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
so God is in control, not these weirdos with their evil plan, the
Mm,
death cult that wants to um, kill off, 3 billion people and whatnot. You know,
mm,
that's why I try to start off with the biblical narrative, because we don't need to be afraid of this. It's real. You should have some information on it, but
mm,
don't let fear lead you.
mm,
'Cause a lot of
mm,
people let fear lead them, and
mm,
that's not even the message I'm preaching.
mm.
So let's get back to the spiritual, because it's so much. That's why it's going to have to be broke up into so many parts.
No, but definitely, because
Yeah,
we're nearly 40 minutes in as it is.
right.
So, okay, so go for it. Go for it. Get back to that, the spiritual side there.
All right. So you also have the summoning and communing with entities from other dimensions,
Right.
right? Again, this is all over the world.
Mm,
You have people that invite spirits into their home to do sexual acts. This is a real thing. You'll have people that want the spirits to bless their crops or their family or give them wealth. Whatever the thing is, they're relying on demonic power instead of God. And so um, we're going to go now into again some of these objects that are we could call them artificial intelligence, but they're demonically fused. I'll put it like that, right? So King Arthur's sword has been enchanted by the Lady of the Lake, or you can call her
mm,
the Demon of the Lake,
mm,
right?
mm.
And she was in control of him the whole time, right? And I don't need to get into the story. You guys know the story, all right? And only he could pull the sword from the rock,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
We already talked about the Infinity Stone, the Hellraiser, the horror movie. They had the cube, and it was like a living entity, and the cube represents also Saturn,
Right. Right.
Satan, the cube cult, right? And they're showing you these entities, these demonic kings of hell coming out to Earth to terrorize people, you know?
So hold on. Hold on. So you're talking about a cube cult. Is
Mhm.
there a link between that and the cube that is inside the UN as part of a chapel?
Oh yeah,
Is there a link between that and the cube that's in Mecca?
yeah, definitely. The cult of Saturn. You'd have to get a couple books to read about it.
Right.
Because okay, so here's the fascinating thing, right? Before, at least that I know of, before we got telescopes, the average audience, how Saturn is so far away, we can't see it with the naked eye, yet there's a cube on Saturn,
Mm,
right?
mm,
So this is demonic influenced, because these entities want you to study the stars and all. Not that there's something wrong with studying the stars, but you know what I mean. They want
mm,
you to worship and all this other stuff, right?
mm, mm.
So yes, the Cuban Mecca, which on the outside has a vajayjay, and the Muslims go up there and they rub it, and it has a meteor stone in it. But why does it have a vagina when Allah is supposed to be a man, right? When I say man, a male spirit. Well, that male spirit goes back into different iterations of the moon god, the hunter goddess Diana. and she
Mm.
had like 1,000 different names: Diana, Samaramis, Wonder Woman, Captain Marvel, Isis, and a bunch of other names. Astarte, you know. And so that's your link to why we say that the Muslims actually worship a moon god,
Right.
Enlil, you know. And so not all demonic names necessarily lead back to Satan, but this one does. And he's also, again, Thor, right? So, okay. So then, in the recent Zack Snyder film, the Justice League, you had what's called a mother box. These were three seemingly inanimate objects, but they were spiritual. They were alive,
Right.
and they were able to grant abilities to people. You
Mm.
know, when Cyborg, Dad was doing his experiment, he used the mother box, and that kept Cyborg alive and made him into a being that was fused with technology that could do anything really. He was like a technological god, for those that know the character. And he also had the red dot in his forehead, which is the pineal gland, right? So tridents to the trident of Poseidon is wielded by Aquaman or Poseidon, and it's like it's alive,
Mm.
okay, and
Mm.
has supernatural power, right? The Lord of the Rings, right? You got the one ring to rule them all, and these rings, at least the main ring, because I didn't necessarily read the stories, but the main ring had a spirit. It would drive people crazy. It wasn't radioactive, you know, and it would drive people crazy, and people would obsess over this thing so they could take power wherever that situation is, right? You have the wand of Harry Potter, right? And the magic wand is made from the holly tree,
Mm.
and that tells you why Hollywood is named Hollywood, because Hollywood is casting a spell on our society. Hollywood controls culture, and a lot of directors in Hollywood have told on record that they want to get rid of Judeo-Christian values, but that's a side note.
Well,
So,
go, just
so
roll back a minute. Just roll back a minute, and let's put another historical context in regard to Hollywood. Because if we think of Cecil B. DeMille, would have the Old Testament by his bedside, and would look in that and think, well, I can make this film, and this film of that is, of course, from biblical stories,
yeah,
and that is fascinating. And then we look back at that. We look at Moses, etc. Incredible, great films that are made, and then we think of where we are now. Absolutely right. The whole cultural change, the fact that you
yeah,
could go to the cinema and watch that particular particular films and others. So I think it'd be good to remember that, and then look at how things have just dramatically changed.
yeah. And by the way, I'm not saying everything coming out of Hollywood is evil or anything like that.
Mm.
Just know that it does drive culture, and it's a
Mm.
spell.
Mm. Mm.
But and Hollywood isn't getting wicked. It's been wicked from the beginning. Once you go back and do the research, oh my gosh, man, they're always deviants. Okay, it attracts deviants. Not everybody in there is a deviant,
Mm. Mm.
but man, the foundations are wicked, man. So anyway, um, so we also have I already talked about Aladdin's carpet, Doctor Strange's cape. You
Mm.
know, it's alive. It has a personality. It pretty much you can kind of uh put it next to like how a dog communicates with you. It doesn't talk, but
Mm.
it has
Mm.
personality.
Mm.
You know, yeah. So this is one that people are going to really know when I mention it. Uh, Pinocchio, right? The puppet was brought to life by a demonic fairy. Fairies are demons. They were always known as demons. Okay, go back in folklore. Go back to the British Isles and all these places. Fairies were always known as demons. It was the Brothers Grimm that kind of made it more palatable for people to get into the stories. a lot of stories like Snow White and stuff, they were changed from the original intent and made
Hmm.
more, entertaining and childlike, So anyway, so Pinocchio was brought to life by a demonic fairy, given the gift of life. That's a quote. Then eventually in the movie became a real boy. I'm a real boy. Living and breathing. Jimmy the Cricket is there to be his spirit guide.
Hmm. Hmm.
Swallow, and then later on he's swallowed up by a whale. Da da da, resembling the biblical tale. So later on, you have the doll in the movie Annabelle, which I didn't watch, but it's a doll that comes to life by a evil spirit. Okay, everyone, well, not everyone, but a lot of people should know Chucky.
Yeah.
Chucky,
Yeah.
the doll from the Child's Play movie,
Hmm.
um, with a soul of a psychopath that was transferred to it
Evil.
through
Hmm.
voodoo. Doesn't it sound like something familiar that we're hearing about a lot nowadays called transhumanism,
Hmm.
where you
Hmm.
can transfer your consciousness to a machine or a robot or a
Right. Got you.
car
Got
or
you.
you know it's the same concept. That's why I wanted to start this off with the spiritual aspect, because once we go further, man, it'll make sense now. Um, the mirror from Snow White and the Seven Dwarves. You can call it an oculus, which means eye, right? They conjured up a spirit to talk and tell them what was going on. Um, that's also called what was called scrying or black mirror scrying.
What's scrying? What's scrying?
Scrying is when you look into a reflective object, whether it's a crystal ball, a mirror, water, uh,
Right.
to get information from a spirit or try to see a small glimpse of the future.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
So
Chris, we're up to we're
yes,
getting
sir.
we're really hitting our time frame. But
Yeah.
where where would be a good point to end this so that we can then pick up, because you're laying out the the huge spiritual aspect of this,
Mhm.
talked about transhumanism, etc., saying, as Noah Harari, Huvel Harari, nutbag as far as I'm concerned, just turns around and says, this is the end of the last sort of generation of humanity. What I find very interesting with him and others is how certain individuals find these people perfectly acceptable to talk to. Oh, yeah, that's great. I mean, you've written this book about Homo sapien, or you're the advisor to Klaus Schwab. Oh, fantastic. Yeah, let's get rid of humanity. And
Mhm.
everyone's sitting there just shaking their heads, going, yeah, this sounds great. Hasn't it occurred to them what's going on, Chris?
No, because like the Bible says, Satan has blinded the mind.
Right.
Ever since um evolution has been introduced to the world,
Mm,
and it was rejected at first, and then the people that had enough money to keep it going kept
mm,
it going.
mm,
What was the plan? Get rid of God,
mm,
make humanity like a god. People
mm,
don't see that, but it's there,
mm,
right? Survival of the fittest. When you look at the X-Men movie, it's all about these non-humans with superpowers
mm.
fighting against humanity. Some of them are helping, but it's like this integration. They want the integration so bad. And Magneto is like, "Are you kidding me? We
Yeah.
gotta wipe them out, man. They're the problem." So that's built on evolution. Uh, the when you hear about humanity reaching its apex, that's built on evolution, because
Yeah.
now we've reached this evolutionary height in humanity to where now we should be able to become gods and go in outer space and all this stuff. That's evolution, right? And
Right.
there are other things to talk about within that sphere, but that humanity, I've seen brilliant people. 'Cause I watch a lot of health videos, brilliant people, and they keep talking about these millions of years that no one could, really touch. 10 million years ago, or when we came out of the caves, and 6 million years ago, and 100 million years ago, all evolutionary lies that people think are true, and they add it to their education. You know,
No, I hear you.
it's like,
I
are you
hear you.
kidding me?
Yeah.
Known humanity history, as far as like written humanity, goes back 4,000 years.
Hmm.
So you're telling me we didn't write before that? Oh no, I forgot. We were walking on one leg with half an eye, and we weren't fully developed yet.
Hmm.
But the Bible lays it out clear. Whether you want to believe it's 6,000 years or 10,000 years, it's not a long time.
It's not millions of years, is
Not
what
millions.
we're saying.
It's not
Yeah.
even 10,000 years.
Yeah.
When
No.
I say 10,000, I mean sorry, not even 100,000 years.
Hmm.
And all the dating methods are skewed. You
No,
can't trust them.
I
But
hear.
what you can
I
trust
hear.
is the Bible, right? But anyway,
I-
humanity has been under a spell, because when you think about it, when Satan came to when Lucifer came to Eve,
Hmm.
he didn't use violence, right? Didn't use violence. He used words. He manipulated her mind when she already heard the truth from God, but he convinced her through his words. That's NLP, isn't it?
Well, that seems a good note to end for now, before we then pick it up again, because this whole thing of lying, NLP, and it's the fact that we are being the enemy wants to push us out of our humanity because he wants to destroy it. Chris, I can't thank you enough, and we will be doing this a lot. Chris, where can people reach you? Where can people find your ministry?
Don'tLetThemBurn.com. That's the hub. And if you want to see my videos, our main source is YouTube. Even though we don't know how much longer we're going to be on there, but YouTube. Then we have a Rumble and other video platforms, BitChute. I have a Twitter. I have a Telegram where you could reach out to me, and we put news out every day on all sorts of subjects, and I share resources. And it's we get a little personal sometimes. So you can reach me. The links are in my videos. You can reach me a lot of different places, but the main place is my website and Telegram.
Brilliant. Chris, I can't thank you enough, because we are going to, as I say, we're going to continue this whole thing of looking at artificial intelligence. And one thing I'm very grateful for is how much you have gone down the rabbit hole and various roads on all of our behalf. And I'm very, very grateful for that, because I think a lot of people think, as you've said, that this is new, but we've got to go back anciently. We've got to go back in history.
Yeah.
So I just want to thank everybody for joining us today. And Chris and I will be we will be back time and time again, because AI is a huge issue. And also, the big question is what is our response to it as Christians? Why aren't these subjects discussed in the church? Well, that's maybe another subject for another day.
Yeah.
Chris, my friend, thank you very much for joining me tonight.
Yes,
And I look forward to doing this again very soon. All right.
All right.
Anyway, God bless everyone. Thank you very much for joining us. Till the next time, see you soon.